What's going on, guys? It's Laser here. Another weekend video analysis. It's nearly 6 o'clock in the evening. We normally get one of these videos out by noon on Saturday, but we've just been very busy. If you're following me on Twitter, I think most of you guys are. I posted a tweet this afternoon or early the morning that I wasn't gonna have time to get out my video out until later in the evening. I had to bring my son to the doctor's office. He's just 5, and I myself personally am just recovering. I finally feel normal. I got the influenza strain where it was like fever, chills, and body aches for what felt like almost like this. And now my poor son is also going through that, but thankfully he's on the tail end. We all kind of have like this lingering cough and got our lungs checked, and it's all clear. So we're all good. Um, Enough about me, enough about my story. I'm just happy to be feeling better and back at it again, and kind of talk about where I see NIO going to next week. If you missed my last week's video, I talked about like how the Seng Index was in a very delicate spot. I still think that remains to be the case. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about what I see in Baba and where I see going into next week. I just don't know, and I think there's the best kind of do my analysis this week is lay out like a couple of different scenarios, so that we can be watching that. Not so that I can be right. It's just so that we have our eyes peeled and we know what to expect in each and every single different scenario. Let's start with some of the good things that I'm seeing here going into next week and some of the bullish next week. We're gonna drive into like the hourly here. I've been tweeting about this for quite some time. I talked about it actually in my last week's video. Just how I connected these wicks. I'm gonna extend it to the right. Here's the first good thing that I'm seeing now. This was our first trend line. We'll just put a little 1 here. All right. And this is looking good right now because we've just reclaimed that very first trend line. But my biggest fear was this support that started out over here in the beginning of February would turn into resistance. Almost tried breaking above it, couldn't. And now it looks to be it broke above it, and now it's flipping it back into support. And it did so by making a nice little cute double bottom. Now that double bottom right there has helped us create our secondary trend line. So you basically have two levels of support now for NIO. We have the 1. This is our first original support, which was started over here. You see, this was like from resistance. It's now support, and then we also have here 1 and 2. So I'm watching both of these trend lines. Where things break for NIO is when you lose 2. And when I mean lose, and it turns that support into resistance. I'm not entertaining that right now because we just reclaimed 1, and I think that's setting up for a squeeze higher. Now, where do we see that squeezing higher? So we use our little fib tool here, and we can measure where that golden pocket is. Golden pockets tend to actually come very often on these lower high pivot moves. So it basically dropped in total here 20%, and now it's trying to form a lower high. Before it's came up 10%. Where I see it going personally, I see us coming right into a golden pocket, which is 477. And I don't see us fully breaking out of that on the first go. Although it could happen with earnings, depending on how fast it gets there. Maybe it does. I like to have a more conservative outlook and approach, and I would suspect that when it gets to that golden pocket zone, or maybe slightly above it, maybe we get even higher, I think you would get that lower high, but just for the sake of being conservative in that number, and it doesn't necessarily have to get all the way up there. Maybe it gets to 474. Maybe you're only that lower high only gets us to 460. I just like that golden pocket because I see it so often. We're gonna go with that. And I come back and maybe retest this one. And if it wants to be really like annoying and really tough, it'll come back and retest to here, our second support trend line. I think things will go because now it's formed. Yes, I'm just get rid of it. It's formed now. This high pivot, and now it's bouncing from support. And it would be so typical of NIO to just rally and then sell off again and have everybody, up in arms over like, why is it doing that? But that's just kind of how the stocks tend to move. And that this would make complete sense. And this would be a breakout. If it bounced and came back up again into that 470 zone, this would actually be your breakout. Meaning the next pullback. Get your big. And maybe it's not going to be like this. Maybe it's, more consolidation. Something along those lines. This is it. This is the move. There's a big fib right there at 550. And with options too. And that's how I would kind of see things kind of pulling out going into next week. I think we're going to come and test that at golden pocket. It comes and it consolidates. It comes down and consolidates, and it builds towards this nice big long setup. And boom, it's going to explode, and we're going to see it way higher. And that's just one scenario. Now, I do see some confluence of NIO pushing higher. When I look at Alibaba, real quick, I'm not going to do a full deep dive analysis, but if you're not following me on Twitter, I've been dropping my analysis on as to where I've been seeing NIO going. Baba's a perfect example of what that would look like on a setup. So take the high, you go all the way down to the low, and you can see it actually broke above its golden pocket. A little bit higher, but it formed a trend line. This was Baba breaking out. Now you can see it like it's doing it's consolidating, making this pennant, and it's getting ready out of this. That's what it's. And I think it's going to be going to 170. If you want to see Baba go up, guys, if you're bull on NIO, you want to see that happen, because this is going to have a profound impact on our Seng Index, which is another piece of the puzzle. Now, it's sitting just above its resistance / support. This is our parallel channel, and I'll zoom out so you guys can see it. Started way back from January, the beginning of January of last year. Not quite perfect. That roughly. This. It's now broken out. Now, my concern with the Seng Index, by the way, and now we're talking about the Chinese stock index, is it's broken through two significant trend lines here. One, and now two, although it was trying to reclaim it here. You can see it almost reclaimed it. Tried once, tried twice, didn't do it. So it's a very interesting spot, because if this holds as support, well, it's going to bounce right back into the second trend line. Probably going to try and break through it again. Now, if it can break through it, We're going to 27. Hang Seng to 27. Baba is going up. But that's if. It could also do this, you guys, as a possibility. And I had it drawn out previously, but it might not hold. It could just break under. If it breaks under, as you can see, it worked its way down towards the bottom of the channel. It's going to be around 21. That's going to give you your 12% correction, which is healthy. That's a healthy amount for a correction if it decides to do that. Of course, not in a straight line, of course. And then it would go for it again. Try and break it again on the next rally, but then we're talking could do some that fashion. So that is what I'm worried about. Is this is what I'm worried right here. This thing. You have to entertain that. Like if you're being like an honest, like technical analyst, this is totally, it has to be, you gotta see that. Now for now, there's showing bullish signs here. Now, my biggest concern when you see 1 and 2 like this is it's kind of too late to really like long China because it's gone up 30% without a huge correction. But it's also too early to try and short it, because if you short it now, you might end up getting screwed on a really big move where it finally pushes up again and retests to 20. You get to 25. And the time to short this thing will be truly, because you're right here, is to seeing if it can hold. Like if it breaks this again and it doesn't hold that 24 zone, and I feel like that's like the line in the sand and we're just right there, and it breaks back under, this needs to be entertained as a possibility. It's a delicate spot. Baba has me convinced we can push out higher, because the chart is so bullish on Baba. It's bull flagging. It did a breakout and it's consolidating. Everything is pointing here, in my opinion, to 170, which means that's going to be up for Hang Seng, which is going to be good for NIO. Now, here's the other scenario that I didn't really want to paint to kind of like unknowns. Like my biggest concern was this, because I see a lot of, and I know a lot of people just looking at moving averages, you will notice this move. When you look at indicators, you'll see a lot of similarities, even my own indicator, but there's other indicators where you can see similarities between the two. And I'll illustrate this to you. And this is what I've always watched here. So notice this yellow line I'm trying to point here. It made a lower low, and that resulted in kind of a short rally, followed by it breaking lower. And notice this is a lower low. Is it going to be similar, like a short rally? And will it come down lower? That's you got to entertain that. When it comes to investing, it's not guaranteed everything. I want it to go up. I want it to go to the moon, but that is something that I'm watching. I'm concerned with. And another one of my concerns is it did break the velocity on that daily, which could be a fake out. It could do this. Absolutely continue. We're not out of the clear. We're not out of the woods. If it does break down lower, your next big level is going to be that triple bottom. It's 360, 370. And what that would look like, assuming the Hang Seng does the worst. If the Hang Seng does this, we'd be looking at this golden pocket to 477, and it would stretch itself down painfully right to the bottom there. And triple bottom. That's, you got to entertain that as a possibility. And then it wants to do its big move, okay? I think no matter what, bulls are going to get their move. They're going to get their gigantic move. It's going to come. It's just, it should have happened already by now. It should have happened. Like, the fact that it's gone up 30% and NIO's barely budged. Something you got to start questioning this. And I want to be wrong about this, but there's a possibility. So I wanted to paint these things as possibilities so you guys are all aware of this being a potential possibility. There's that. That's what I think. And now there's earnings coming up next week. Is it going to be next week? So definitely keep your eyes peeled for earnings. That does it. It says in 3 days here. Next earning report. I don't know if that's confirmed or if it's been announced, but if it is, awesome. That's going to be exciting. And I'm rooting to see NIO go way higher, but I'm also scared. We'll get like that lower high. I think we're going to get that pullback no matter what. And will that just be your lower high and then back down? I don't know. And this is not me trying to make you guys feel weird about your investment, sketchy about your investment. I'm just calling what I'm saying here. What that would look like, by the way, is it would look kind of a lot like this. Here, I'm going to change this to yellow, see what I mean. Hello? Change that to white. You guys can see this is how it would look like from a velocity standpoint of view. Oh, you'd be like, oh, it needs to form that higher low. It needs to dip lower and form that higher low on that velocity, that 200-day moving average. Possibility. That's it. Those are the two scenarios here for now, because we're actually above trendline 1 and it looks to be flagging here. I'm still gonna say let's see what it does. Let's see what it does when it rides back into that golden pocket, which is 477. What did I tell you it was? 478. 477. So that's it. I have my eyes set on that. After that, and I guess we'll know pretty much in 2 days where it's going, if earnings are going to be in 2 or 3 days. So let's see what happens. Maybe you get like that push into earnings. Earnings comes out, and it's not. And I don't even think it's going to be about what these earnings are going to be. It's going to be about what are they going to guide for Q1? Could there be a negative reaction? Because they could actually hit and be totally green because they killed it in Q4. But if they give you poor guidance to Q1 because of poor delivery numbers, it could have a negative reaction. That could be it. I'm just trying to paint out different scenarios. I hope you guys don't hate me. I'm just sharing my opinion. And again, I'm just a guy who likes the stock. I love the stock. I love the cars. I love this stock, and I believe it's going to squeeze. I'm just torn, completely torn here because of where the Seng Index is. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that like if BABA goes green, that it automatically means that it's going to be higher as well. And I want that to be the case, but we got to entertain all different possibilities. And that's it. Now, on a plus side, this is absolutely completely wild that the US dollar has collapsed. It's completely collapsed here. And it did it by after first giving us like that breakout, which was crazy. It gave us that first breakout and then it just collapsed. And it broke. It was not able to flip this from support to resistance. And what that could mean for the US dollar, which is going to be very bullish for equities, is you might get that bounce to 104 and down to the bottom on up to 98. That could very well be the case here on the US dollar. It's totally and entirely collapsed, and that is very, very bullish generally for equities. When the Dixie collapses, you start seeing Bitcoin start spiking, start seeing the stock market spiking. If Bitcoin spikes, usually the Hang Seng spikes. And that's where things start looking real good. That's it, guys. That sums up my video for today. I hope I covered a couple of different scenarios here. If you guys have any questions, definitely drop the questions in the comment section below. I'll do the best I can to answer your questions when I see them and to the best of my abilities. Don't forget to smash the thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to get a notification for when I put out my next video. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I'll be back on Twitter on Monday and Tuesday and all throughout the rest of the week and tweeting what's changing and what's happening. So make sure you follow me on Twitter. My Twitter link will be in the description below. Thanks, guys, and have a wonderful night. Cheers.